What if the most important strength test after 60 isn't how much you can lift, but whether you can get up off the floor by yourself? Imagine dropping something, sitting down to play with a grandchild, or even taking a gentle stretch, and suddenly realizing the hard part isn't getting down. It's getting back up. That moment of hesitation, that little spark of fear, that's what we're tackling today. I'm going to show you a safe, knee-friendly way to get off the floor step by step, so you can move with confidence and stay independent in your own home. A lot of people over 60 quietly believe that struggling to get off the floor is just part of getting older, like it's some kind of rule written into aging. But that's simply not true, because what really changes is not your ability to learn, it's how often you practice certain movements, and for most adults, the floor slowly disappears from daily life. Chairs get higher, couches get softer, and we stop moving through low positions, so the body loses familiarity, coordination, and confidence with those angles, which can make the floor feel intimidating when in reality the issue is deconditioning, not destiny. And that is very good news, because deconditioning can be reversed at any age with the right approach and a bit of consistent practice. Getting up from the floor is not a test of youth, it's a combination of balance, leg strength, hip mobility, and knowing how to position your body so you use leverage instead of brute force. And when you break it down that way, it becomes a skill, just like learning to get out of a car more comfortably or carry groceries more easily. And skills improve with repetition, patience, and smart progressions, not with wishful thinking or avoiding the movement altogether. The body adapts to what you ask it to do. And when you start practicing floor transitions in a safe and controlled way, your muscles begin to coordinate better, your brain gets more comfortable with the movement, and that feeling of panic or helplessness starts to shrink, replaced by a growing sense of "I've done this before, I know what to do," which is just as important as the physical strength itself. Many people are surprised at how quickly things change when they practice even a few minutes a day, because the nervous system learns fast, and movements that felt awkward or impossible at first begin to feel smoother and more natural, especially when you use supports like a sturdy chair or couch while you build strength, which allows you to train the pattern without overloading your joints. Instead of seeing the floor as a danger zone, you begin to see it as another level you can move to and from with control. And that shift in mindset is powerful, because it replaces fear with capability, and capability encourages more movement, which leads to even more strength and stability over time. None of this requires extreme workouts or painful exercises, just intentional practice of real-life movements that your body was designed to do, scaled to your current ability and gradually improved. And when you approach it this way, getting off the floor stops being a symbol of aging and starts being a sign that you're actively maintaining your independence, proving to yourself that your body is still responsive, still trainable, and still very much on your side. As the years go on, one of the biggest reasons people avoid practicing getting up from the floor is knee pain, because the moment they picture the movement, they imagine having to kneel. And for anyone with arthritis, past injuries, or stiff joints, kneeling can feel like an instant no. But the good news is that kneeling is not a requirement for standing up. It's just one of many passable routes, and not even the most efficient one for a lot of adults after 60. When you rely on kneeling, you put direct pressure on the knee joint in a bent position that may already be irritated, and you also depend heavily on pushing up from that joint, which can feel unstable and painful. So instead of forcing your body into a position it dislikes, you can change the strategy and use positions that shift the workload into stronger, more resilient areas like your hips and thighs. The key is understanding that standing up is really about getting your center of mass over your feet and using the large muscles of your lower body to lift you, not about what your knees are touching along the way. And when you use your hands for support and move through a side sit into a low crouch or a squat-like position, you completely bypass the need to put weight on the front of your knees, which is often the most uncomfortable part. Your hands become helpers, not crutches, giving you balance and a bit of push, while your legs do the main job. And this teamwork between upper and lower body spreads the effort out, so no single joint takes all the stress. Your hips are designed to be powerful, and the glute muscles are some of the strongest in your body, but they only stay that way if you use them. So when you learn to shift your weight back into your heels and lean your chest slightly forward as you prepare to stand, you're setting up those hip muscles to fire and lift you Instead of asking your knees to handle a load they may not tolerate well. Even small adjustments, like placing your feet a little wider or turning your toes out slightly, can make the movement feel more natural and reduce strain, because you're working with your body's structure rather than against it. Using furniture is another smart way to protect your knees while you build strength, because pressing your hands into a stable chair or couch raises your upper body and reduces how deep you have to bend, which decreases the force going through the knees while still allowing your legs to get stronger. And over time, as your confidence and strength improve, you may find you rely less on your hands, but they're always there as a helpful option, not a sign of weakness. This approach respects your joints, keeps you moving, and proves that pain does get to make all the rules, because with the right technique, you can get off the floor safely and comfortably without ever having to kneel when it comes to standing up from a low position. Most of the struggle doesn't come from a lack of effort. It comes from where the effort is directed. And one of the most powerful changes you can make is learning to shift your weight forward before you try to rise. A simple idea often described as nose over toes, which means bringing your chest forward so your upper body moves over your feet before your hips lift. This small adjustment completely changes which muscles do the work, because when your weight stays back, your legs can't engage effectively and your lower back ends up straining, trying to hold you upright without the help it needs, which is why so many people feel stuck or wobbly when they try to stand straight up without leaning forward first. By gently bringing your shoulders forward and letting your nose travel over your toes, you place your center of gravity directly above your base of support, which is your feet. And that alignment gives your legs the mechanical advantage they need to push the floor away and lift you smoothly. It's not about bending deeply or moving fast, it's about direction, because forward creates leverage while straight up creates struggle. And once you feel the difference, it's like discovering a hidden ramp where there used to be a wall. Your hips and thighs are built to extend and drive you upward, but they can only do that efficiently when your body is positioned so they're pushing in the right direction. This forward shift also protects your back, because instead of yanking yourself upright with your spine, you hinge slightly at the hips, keeping your back long while your powerful leg muscles take over, and that coordinated movement spreads the load across large muscle groups instead of concentrating it in smaller, more vulnerable areas. Many people are surprised that standing becomes easier when they lean more forward at first, because it feels counterintuitive, almost like you're going the wrong way, but in reality you're setting up the lift, just like a skier leans forward before pushing off or a runner leans before accelerating. Practicing this motion from a chair is one of the best ways to groove the pattern, because you can sit tall, place your feet firmly on the floor, and slowly lean your chest forward until you feel weight shift into your feet, then press through your legs to stand, noticing how much lighter the movement feels when your nose leads the way. Over time, this becomes automatic, and you'll use it not only for getting off the floor, but for rising from beds, sofas, and even low-cost seats, turning what used to feel like a strain into a controlled, confident action driven by smart body positioning and strong, capable legs working exactly the way they were designed. To one of the smartest ways to build confidence getting off the floor is to stop thinking of it as one big, intimidating movement and start seeing it as a series of smaller, trainable pieces. Because when you strengthen the parts separately, the whole sequence becomes smoother and far less overwhelming. Your body doesn't just need raw strength. It needs coordination, balance, and familiarity with the positions involved. And each of those can be improved with simple, focused practice that feels manageable instead of scary. When you break it down, you realize there's the leg strength needed to stand, the upper body support needed to help you shift positions, and the balance required to feel steady as your weight moves. And each one can be trained in everyday ways that don't require getting all the way down to the floor every time. Chair squats are one of the most practical starting points because they directly strengthen the muscles you use in the final phase of standing, and they let you control how much assistance you need, whether that's using your hands lightly on the armrests or crossing your arms over your chest as you get stronger. And every time you sit down slowly and stand back up with control, you're teaching your legs and hips how to generate force safely. Even just practicing the forward lean while seated, feeling your weight shift into your feet before you rise, reinforces the nose over toes pattern that makes standing from low positions much easier. And the more familiar that motion becomes, the more automatic it feels when you actually need it. For the upper body portion, practicing the transition from lying on your side to pushing up into a supported seated position builds arm and shoulder strength in a very functional way, and it also helps your brain get comfortable with the idea of moving on the floor without panic, which is huge for confidence. You can rehearse just that part on a soft surface, taking your time as you press through your elbow and hand to come upright, knowing you can always lie back down if needed. And this removes the pressure of having to complete the full get-up every time, while still building the skills you need. Balance can be trained in small, safe doses too, like gently shifting your weight from one foot to the other while holding a counter, or standing on one leg for a few seconds with support nearby. And these simple drills improve your body's ability to make tiny adjustments that keep you steady when rising from a low crouch. As these individual pieces improve, they start to connect, and movements that once felt shaky begin to flow together more naturally, turning a complicated task into a sequence your body recognizes and trusts, built step by step through consistent, realistic practice that meets you exactly where you are. Being able to get up from the floor is about much more than muscles and joints, because there's a powerful mental and emotional shift that happens when you know you can handle yourself in a vulnerable position, and that sense of capability spills over into everyday life in ways you might not expect. For many people over 60, the fear of falling isn't just about the fall itself. It's about the terrifying thought of not being able to get back up, of feeling stuck, helpless, or dependent on someone else to rescue you, and that fear can quietly shrink your world, making you more cautious, less active, and more likely to avoid movements that actually keep you strong. When you practice getting off the floor and prove to yourself that you can do it, even with support and even imperfectly, you begin to replace that fear with evidence. And evidence is far more powerful than reassurance. Each successful repetition becomes a message to your brain that says, I can figure this out. My body can still respond. I'm not as fragile as I thought, and that message builds a kind of physical confidence that changes how you carry yourself. You may notice you walk with a little more ease. You hesitate less before bending down to pick something up, and you're more willing to participate in activities that involve getting lower, like gardening, playing with grandchildren, or stretching on the floor. And all of that extra movement feeds back into better strength, balance, and mobility. Independence isn't just about living alone or driving a car. It's about trusting your body enough to move through your environment without constant worry. And floor mobility is a surprisingly big piece of that trust. There's also a deep sense of dignity in being able to manage basic physical tasks on your own. And while needing help is a normal part of life at times, having the ability to get yourself up when possible preserves a feeling of control that supports emotional well-being. When people feel capable, they're more likely to stay socially engaged, physically active, and mentally positive, all of which are strongly connected to long-term health. Something as simple as practicing a floor-to-stand sequence can become a daily reminder that aging doesn't mean giving up skills. It means adapting and continuing to invest in what your body can still learn. Peace of mind is another huge benefit, because the more familiar you are with the movement, the less dramatic it feels, and that reduces the panic response that can make any situation worse. Knowing you have a plan, knowing you've rehearsed it, and knowing you have the strength to carry it out turns a potential crisis into a manageable task, and that calm confidence is one of the most valuable forms of security you can build for yourself as the years go on.